So I'll just give you a quick overview of what we have laid out this evening and why we are doing what we are doing. I think because it's important for us to keep holding on to the essence of why we started this in the first place. And having a personal journey with the bone marrow transplant, I think it was important for us to understand what goes into the entire transplant. So this is what we currently do. I'm going to skip a lot of slides, but I'm just going to keep it very short, less than 3 minutes. So what we found out is that the pre-transplant preparation for a patient is extremely important, right from information perspective to understanding of the whole process of bone marrow, because we realized that every new event was causing anxiety if the patient was not better prepared. So how do we equip the patient to be knowledgeable in this space? So this was, one space that we really keen to work with. Then, of course, everybody understands this in the BMT space that the first 100 days are extremely critical. And how and why hand-holding during these 100 days is so important, especially when the patient is going through so many ups and downs. and obviously life after BMT, which is the entire recovery and the rehabilitation phase. This is perhaps, a link that's entirely missing currently, because when a person steps out of the transplant unit and is back home, the entire process of recovery and rehabilitation is still a gap, because I think, they have to really manage individually on their own or with very little advice. And how do you get the right advice and support during this time? So this is really a very, very important piece of our work in terms of 100 days and the rehabilitation that we are going to work on. Now, a lot of this is already work in progress in terms of what we are planning to do. And obviously some of that you will see today when the patient's handbook is released. I think it's the first step for us to, in this process, we connected with the patient and we connected even more closely with the family and the caregivers, because they are the ones who are really talking to you every day in and day out during the 100 days and otherwise. What we realized when we studied the gap analysis in terms of process, when we looked at the end-to-end patient cycle, not the hospitalization cycle or the BMT cycle, but when we looked at the patient cycle, we realized that there are so many spaces like diagnosis, donor identification, counseling, finance, BMT, 100-day recovery. All these, there were so many gaps that we wanted to fulfill. And we were realizing that the success of a bone marrow transplant for a patient can only happen if the entire ecosystem is thriving. If the entire ecosystem works together, if the entire ecosystem is anchored in the same spirit of hand-holding him from end to end. And this is why we believe that creating a very strong ecosystem around BMT, a thriving ecosystem, is of acute importance. And I think, that's been our focus in the last 3 years of our study and engagement with patients through different processes. So what that actually relates to is an opportunity to create an ecosystem and to co-create it with everybody, because we can't do it alone. And we don't want to do it. I think our space is specifically related to BMT. And there are experts in this field who will obviously, after this presentation, start sharing their expertise. But more importantly, we thought it's important to understand from each of these experts in terms of what we can do right as an NGO, as a foundation, to ensure that the patient always remains a priority and the family and the caregivers always remain a priority. So I think that's where really we are focused on. And we have set, some targets for ourselves up to, like a 2025.